One of my favourite things about the modern age of video games is all of the remakes we're getting. Sure, some may argue that developers should be focusing on new experiences, but if you ask me, I am in full support of these classics getting another chance to captivate newer audiences. It's also great to experience those games we grew up with a fresh coat of paint. Dragon Quest III: The Seeds of Salvation was first released all the way back in 1988 for the Famicom, and since then it's seen some form of re-release every few years. This latest version is a complete remake in that HD-2D format that we all know and love. In fact, the first two titles, which act as sequels to Dragon Quest III, are also getting this remake treatment, and I cannot wait to jump into these next year. The Dragon Quest III remake is perfect for those who love this series already, or those who are fans of the classic JRPG formula seen in the 80s and early 90s. If you're into these pretty visuals, a traditional turn-based combat system, and don't mind a bit of grinding, Dragon Quest III should be the next on your list. Before we get into it, it would help me out a lot to hit that like button and sub for more JRPG content coming soon. And what did you think of Dragon Quest III? Have you played it yet? Do you agree with what I said? Let me know in the comments below. Alright, let's get into it. So, what's new in the Dragon Quest III remake? Most obviously, we have the gorgeous new HD-2D visuals that look incredible and the reorchestrated soundtrack which sounds amazing. These detailed locations are particularly gorgeous when you factor in the different times of day and the weather conditions. It has been an absolute treat to see how Square Enix has been evolving this visual style since Octopath Traveler 1 in 2017, and I really feel that Dragon Quest III is at the peak of what they've produced in this style. In terms of new additions, Dragon Quest III Remake includes a load of extra features including sparkling items and secret spots on the map, but the biggest new inclusion is the Monster Wrangler job class and the overhaul to the Monster Arena, which I'll get into later. In terms of story, it's generally the same but with a few new cutscenes to provide more insight into Ortega's adventure. This is basically the same Dragon Quest III that we grew up with, but even better, and I also have no hesitation in recommending this version if you're looking to play Dragon Quest III for the first time. The story follows a young hero who is tasked with defeating the evil archfiend Baramos. While the player initially needs to choose a name for this hero, he is better known as Erdrick throughout the rest of the series. Now, Erdrick is the child of Ortega, who was a legendary warrior who set out on the same quest but is believed to have perished. The story involves Erdrick following in his footsteps, traveling the land and saving the world from evil. As you would expect from a game first released in 1988, there's not much going on here. Your party members only have a few lines throughout the entire journey, and the NPCs often give very brief and direct instructions. Like when you meet the King of Portoga. The jerk doesn't say, "Hi, how you doing? Thanks for being a hero," or anything like that. He just sends you straight on another quest. And then there's your party. Strangely, one of the only times your party ever speaks is when Erdrick gets involved in a little puff, if you know what I mean. I think the most elaborate storytelling scenes are the new additions that flesh out Ortega's backstory. These are mostly voiced and do well in adding to the overall experience. Something else worth mentioning here is the recall mechanic. After you read a character's dialogue, you can save this conversation, allowing you to recall it from the menu at a later date. This isn't very useful for story objectives, as there's always markers on the map for your next destination, but it is incredibly useful to save the many hints given to you by NPCs. This game has a lot of secrets, and to find them all, you'll need to follow the hints provided by NPCs, so naturally, being able to save then recall these hints is very useful. When it comes down to it, this recall mechanic is a slightly more efficient method than the traditional note-taking method that gamers would have had to use to track hints in other games during the era. I think my favourite thing about the Dragon Quest III experience was the exploration. There is a lot of secrets to find throughout the towns, the dungeons, and the world map. Dragon Quest III is absolutely one of the leading JRPGs in providing incentive to raid people's houses. In fact, if you're not checking everybody's pots, cupboards, and panty drawers, you're doing it wrong. Sure, some of these items are useless, but you will often find super powerful equipment or mini medals which can be exchanged for other rare items. This level of exploration and discovery also extends to the world map with its addition of sparkly treasures and secret locations that provide a range of benefits. Few games make it so worthwhile to thoroughly examine every point of the world. Now, new to this remake is the addition of monster catching. There are loads of tame monsters hidden throughout the world that when interacted with will join your crew. This system is pretty simple, with most joining up when you talk to them, but others require you to use an item first, such as the musk item to change your scent. When recruited, you can pick 3 of them to battle in the monster arena. If you've played Dragon Quest: The Dark Prince, it works much the same. You can select their tactics, but you can't directly input commands for them in battle. This was a really nice addition, as there were some very worthwhile rewards for completing the arena ranks. So, while the exploring is a load of fun, the encounter rate does make it very tedious. Thankfully, and I mean thankfully, there is a thief ability called Padfoot which significantly reduces the encounter rate, but it was a little annoying having to go through the menus to repeatedly select this option. I felt like some sort of quick ability use would have been really useful. And while on the topic, there were actually quite a few things that won't exactly enhance the quality of your life. Having to individually sell each item at the shop and needing to return to town to revive a party member in the early game just makes things a little more time consuming than they should be. At the start of the game, a mysterious being appears before Erdrick to ask him some questions. What is your real name? When were you born? What is your mother's maiden name? What is your credit card number? That sort of thing. No, but seriously, you need to answer a few questions regarding how you will respond to certain situations, and these answers will dictate your character's personality. I thought this personality system was really cool, as it plays a vital role in how your character's stats increase when they level up. For instance, the bodybuilder personality has great growth in strength but limited growth in wisdom and luck, so naturally you'll want this personality type for physically attacking builds. Once you do receive your personality, which is more than I can say about some of my co-workers, it is still possible to change it, either permanently through reading the associated book or temporarily by equipping a certain accessory. The type of personality that you want will mostly depend on your job class. While Erdrick is always locked into the hero job class, the other party members can select from one of 8, with the 9th hidden class being unlockable later in the game. But of course, Erdrick won't go at it alone. He'll team up with a bunch of other warriors, and this entire process of acquiring party members is quite unique. You simply need to head to the pub, get wasted on the good stuff, then see who's still passed out on your couch in the morning. No, you go to the pub, talk to the guy, then create your party members from scratch. I really liked this and created my wife as a monk, my eldest son as a thief, and my youngest son as a monster wrangler. And if you're wondering why I made those specific choices, no comment. She hears everything. Like I mentioned before, the Monster Wrangler class is brand new and it learns its unique abilities based on how many monsters you've caught around the world. Now, the real customization here comes when you reach level 20, as you are able to switch job classes but retain your skills and abilities and half of your stats. There are a lot of hybrid classes that you can create here, with the only real disadvantage being that they'll be underleveled for a while. My wife, for instance, ended up being a mix of a merchant, a monk, and a warrior, and she was so happy that her character ended up having better physical stats than my hero did. The fundamentals of the turn-based combat hasn't changed, but there are a couple of new additions that enhance the overall system. First is that you can now see the character models before the fighting actions begin. However, the game still retains the traditional first-person view when they attack. The major life-saving feature here is the ability to change the battle speed. Normal mode is probably among the slowest systems that I've ever experienced, and I'm not just talking about the slow attack animations. The time between attacks seemed like an eternity. I sped every single regular battle up to ultra fast and then went with fast for the boss fights, just so I could have a bit more time to read the combat messages. Everything else is what you'd expect from the Dragon Quest III battle system: HP, MP, abilities, spells, and the good old group attack mechanics that allow certain attacks or weapons to hit a group of enemies rather than a single enemy or all enemies. This combat is incredibly simple, so if you're after anything with some sort of depth, you will be disappointed. But with that said, would you really want a remake to completely change the fundamentals of the original battle system? Probably not. The only real thing that made this combat enjoyable for me was its challenge. I usually had to think about what I was doing, even with the random encounters. Dragon Quest III provides you with 3 difficulty options which can be changed at any time. I played the game on Dragon Quest mode, which is the medium difficulty, and, well, I was certainly challenged. In order to progress, I was often required to grind to beat the next boss, particularly towards the end of the game. For those of you out there wanting less of a challenge, you can lower the difficulty of enemies to Draki Quest, but this also means that you cannot die, ever, which was an absolutely stupid design choice. Make enemies easy to defeat, absolutely, but don't also give us God mode here. Dragon Quest III is the first of the initial 3 Dragon Quest games that is getting the full HD-2D remake treatment, and it has got me so excited for what's to come next year. And as I've said with every game to take on this style, Dragon Quest III looks and sounds amazing, and I really think that this may be the peak of Square Enix's HD-2D visual work. Not only this, but there are also plenty of other additions that greatly enhance the experience, from the new Monster Wrangler job class to the Monster Arena. There were plenty of great quality of life features here too, but personally, I wanted a bit more in this area, such as the ability to quickly activate abilities or to quickly sell items. The best time that I had with Dragon Quest III, however, was when I was out exploring the world. There is so much to find, both out on the world map and in the dungeons and the towns. Few retro-style JRPGs have dealt with exploration and discovery so well. Dragon Quest III absolutely achieves what it sets out to do, but the result of this is a very simple experience, from its story to its combat. If you're after something with a bit of depth, you may be disappointed. Something that I loved, however, is the challenge that Dragon Quest III provided me. For the majority of the game, the medium difficulty level was perfectly challenging for me, but just beware, there are a few points, particularly towards the end, that requires a lot of grinding. Like I said before, Dragon Quest III is an absolute must play if you're a big Dragon Quest fan or a fan of these old school style JRPGs. It will have you hooked for a good 40 odd hours. What did you think of Dragon Quest III? Do you agree with what I said? Let me know in the comments below. This was Hellfire RPGs, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit that like button and sub for more RPG content coming soon. See you next time.